Thank you so much for joining us today. We have two very, very successful women that need no introduction. I don't want to spend the time it will take me to describe all of their achievements. So guys will learn directly from them all of their successes and achievements in life. So I'm just going to ask a few key questions, and then after that I will open up the floor for questions. I'm pretty sure you will have a lot of them. So, Maria Elena, let's start with you. Why don't you tell us about the circumstances of a country for a little girl like you to have to leave Cuba at a very early age?
We left the country in June of 1960, and I was 11. You don't have to do the math. I'm 61, and I was a very protected and kind of precocious little girl, and I was in 6th grade, and at that time they passed a new regulation, and I was in an all-girls Catholic school, and they passed a new regulation that to go from 6th grade to 7th grade, you had to take a public exam. And so they shipped all of us little girls in our little uniforms on a bus. They sent us out to the countryside to some man that was going to give us this test. And so it so happens that my grandfather, on my father's side, so it's my last name, taught at the University of Havana. He was the head of the physics and mathematics department. So just about anybody in the sciences that went through there knew my last name. So anyway, I had this thing where I always finish tests very quickly. I still do. It's not necessarily a good thing. But in this test, it wasn't just about geography and Spanish and math and all this. It was also about politics. And so when I finished the test, I had to answer questions like, what does the 1st of January 1959 mean, and what does the revolution mean? And of course, I wrote everything that I had heard at home. So I finished my test very fast. I walked to the guy that was doing the test, and when he got supervising the test, and when he got my test, he saw the last name, and he said, what are you, Juan Manuel Lagomasino? And I said, Juan Manuel, it's my grandfather. So because of that, I think he took an interest in my test, and he looked at my test, and when he got to those responses, he freaked out. And he got up, he came to, the side of my desk, he gave me a new test, and he said, I want you to do the test over again, but these last questions, this is how I want you to answer them. So I did. I knew it was serious, and when I got home that night, he was there with my parents. And a week later, we had left. Okay, now I wasn't the only catalyst for my parents leaving, obviously. There was also a rumor that any professional would not be allowed to leave. So they packed my father and me, and they sent us out of the country. So is that the story you wanted me to tell?
Yeah.
Okay.
And then after that, how was life for a Cuban college girl in New York at that time?
We went from Havana to West Hartford, Connecticut, and we were the only Cubans that most people had ever met. And I would get questions in school like, were there elevators in Cuba? And did you have refrigerators? And all these kinds of things. But the wonderful thing was that everyone in West Hartford was absolutely incredibly welcoming. I learned every slang and dirty word in English that I did not know. Yeah. What I never really was able to get over was how cold it was. To this day, I hate the cold weather. I can never get warm.
Mexico is a very machista country. I mean, we all know that. How is it for a woman in your position? I mean, a CEO, it's not easy to find CEO, a woman at your position in a country like Mexico. And how has been your experiences like dealing with men at that level?
Well, it has not been easy dealing with men, but the thing is that I learned when I was 11 years old, I used to work at a gas station, 11, 12, and 13. And it was then that I realized that I had to figure out how Angélica needed to defend her own rights as a woman. 11. Unconsciously, I did. I had asked for, I would work at a gas station, I would fill up the car, clean up the windows, tires, oil, etc. And they would never give me a tip, but they would give the guys a tip. So one day I realized I had to ask, how come nobody ever gave me a tip? So the next day I went to the gas station, serviced the first car that came. It was a man. And when he paid me and I gave him the change bag, I said, how come you don't tip me when you're tipping all the guys that are doing the same work that I'm doing for you? And so he was pretty embarrassed, and of course he tipped me. After that, I had to ask every car. Juarez, which is where I'm from, it was at that time, 36 years ago, very small city. So, word went out. We got a lot of customers, and I was tipped. But it was then unconsciously that I realized that it was me who had to realize what to do and how to do to defend my right as a woman. And then I worked in the energy sector for 20 years. The energy sector is controlled basically by men in the world. And what I did was, instead of working against men or competing with men, what I did was work probably twice as hard as any men had to do to give the results, the positive results in everything that I was doing, for them, one, to respect my work, and two, to acknowledge and allow me to get in to into this world of men. And, slowly but surely they did. And it was through that, not trying to compete and not, I have a saying. Women usually say we're gaining, terrain against men. I don't think that's correct. I think we're gaining our own terrain as women without trying to gain it with, against men. So that's basically, what I did was knowing that the only person I needed to compete with was me. Then I needed to believe in me, hard work, discipline, and a lot of confidence in myself. It's what has made me be out there in the world and be with men without having that much trouble, even though it is very hard for men to accept it. I think women, and I'm sure Marilena will agree with me, I think with results, we get there, and a lot of hard work.
And how much has it changed from the times you were working at a gas station to today?
Well, the gas stations have not changed a lot. They're still basically worked by men throughout the country. But, I think women in Mexico have really come a long way. There's a lot of great women out there working, a lot of executives, in good positions. Still not as much as we want to see, but women have opened up their ways in politics, economics, labor force. 47% of the workforce in Mexico is women, which I think is wonderful. 11% of the politicians in good positions in power are women, far behind, Colombia, for example. I was just giving a speech in Colombia. In Colombia, it's 57% of the women who are in power. But, Mexico's getting there. I think women are really getting into their own power, and the society's very slowly but surely acknowledging that women have what it takes. And women are demonstrating that, yes, we can do it. We just have to work hard at getting there.